Right, so diverticulitis is inflammation of the diverticulum. So you see these little holes up here. This is intestine, and sometimes over time, it could be hereditary, it could also be due to just poor diet. The walls of the intestines become weak and they start to develop these little pockets called diverticulum. So somebody will have a colonoscopy, and if they see these little pockets and holes, they'll diagnose that person with diverticulosis. Now, if these pockets become inflamed, like maybe something gets stuck in there and it just gets really, really inflamed, that person now has diverticulitis. It can also become infected, and it can even become so severe that it ruptures through the intestine, and now they have stool that can come through that hole and go into the abdominal cavity, and it can make that person very, very sick. So sometimes a person may need to have part of their colon removed. They may even end up with a colostomy because of diverticulitis. So different things that we can do to help this person if they're constipated. Like I said, we can give them enough water, making sure they're getting all the water that they need for the day. We need to make sure that they're getting fiber. Okay, if somebody has diverticulosis, we typically want to make sure that they're on a high fiber diet too, so that the stool is bulked and it's moving through that intestine. It's not getting stuck in any of those diverticulum. So this is an example of an enema. There's different kinds. There's kinds that come in a squirt bottle, and there's kinds that hang on an IV pole. It would go into the anus, and it would fill that rectum with fluid and try to break up some of that stool that's stuck inside of there, and hopefully get that moving so that they can get rid of it. We've talked about ostomies before too. So a person could have a colostomy, which is in the colon. They could have an ileostomy, which is higher in the ileum. They could even have a jejunostomy, which is way up in the jejunum. Okay, so the further down the ostomy is, the more solid the feces is going to be. Okay, because it pulls water off as it's moving through the intestine. So I also want to real quickly go over if you need to get a urinary sample from somebody. If you need to collect a sterile urine specimen from someone, it might also be called midstream. So you'll see here it says midstream. You would open this package up. This package will be sterile inside, and you want to touch only the outside of the cup. Okay? You don't want to touch the inside of the cup because the inside is sterile. And if I touch it and then they urinate in it, it might get my skin cells inside of there, and it might look like they have an infection that they don't have. So of course, to do this, you would definitely be wearing gloves. All right, so if you have to do this for them while they're sitting on the toilet, they would start urinating, and then while they're urinating, you would go in with the cup, holding this little handle, catch some of the urine, and then pull it out. That's why it's called a midstream. Okay. Before that you do that, you would make sure that they are clean. So you would take this wipe that comes, this little towelette that comes inside of the package, and they would wipe from front to back. Always from front to back. All right. We want to introduce any of the bacteria from the anus up inside of there and make it look like they have an infection that they don't. So once you have collected that urine specimen, you would take this part off and put the cover on very carefully, not touching the inside of the lid at all. Put the cover on, and then you would make sure you label it with their name, date, time, and your initials because you were the one who collected it. And then that would go to the lab. Okay, so that's a sterile urine specimen. Sometimes people have an order for a 24-hour urine specimen too. So if they have that, it usually is kept inside of a big jug that's kept on ice, and it's kept dark. So we would have them void in the beginning of the day for this urine, 24-hour urine, and we would discard that first void, that first urine. But that's when our time starts. So if they urinate at 8 a.m., we flush it. but that's when our 24-hour time starts. We collect all the urine from that time until 8 a.m. the next day. Okay? The bad thing about that is if somebody accidentally dumps some of the urine as they forgot, and I've had many a CNA do that before, we have to start all over again. Okay, so that 24 hours has to start again. So just be careful, if you have somebody on a 24-hour urine, that you don't do that. All right, so if you do have any questions about elimination, you just let me know, and make sure that you watch emptying the drainage bag as one of your skills, and putting somebody on a bedpan. And I'll see you later.